Time now for a little Major League Baseball buy or sell on this Tuesday, live in person in studio together. He's Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Anytime you are joined by one of the hosts of Pro Baseball today, you got to talk a little MLB. And despite going 0 for at the dish last night, DRS, and a disappointing loss for the Yankees up in the Bronx against the Padres, Aaron Judge still having a monumental start to this season. He was the ever-so-slight favorite, battling with Bobby Witt Jr. to close as the AL MVP favorite before this year got started. Now it's basically a no contest, just over a month in to this 2025 MLB campaign. Aaron Judge to an American League MVP for the third time in the last 4 years, minus 1,000 to lead the bigs in home runs this year. Minus 140 to win the Triple Crown, plus 145 to have a 400 batting average at the time of the All-Star break, plus 850, a couple of new markets opening up. To have a 400 average the entirety of this MLB season is 41 to 1. So, DRS, the buy or sell question is not which of these bets do you like the most, but buy or sell. Aaron Judge is the greatest right-handed hitter in MLB history.
No, well, see, that's false right off the bat, so I'm going to sell that. Is he an unbelievably talented hitter right now, on pace to do some damage and be a Hall of Famer? Absolutely he is. And we just saw him in an MVP market that's basically 5 to 6 weeks old. He's a minus 1,000, which means if he twists his ankle, miss 2.5 weeks, he can't be the MVP and probably won't have those statistics. Shows you how talented he is. And also, what's going on in the American League and why can't anybody press this guy for a minus 1,000 to start? Let's understand from Aaron Judge what he's doing. The expectation again from a premier power hitter is he is going to take a lot of strikeouts because how do you get power? Swing with all your might all 3 times. He's hitting for average end power, which is astounding to the point of over 400. This is something like a Stephen Kwan would do, like, hey, man, all I do is hit singles and I'm really fast so I can beat out ground balls in the infield. That's not Aaron Judge. What he's doing is crazy, but also understand this. You're taking a look at a guy like, the best right-handed hitters of all time and use a guy like Albert Pujols. You look at Aaron Judge, 300-plus home runs. I don't know the exact number. I had it a little bit up this morning. 703 for Pujols. 703. You take a look at the RBI market for him. 2,200 RBIs. Like, he's got a long way to go to be the best of all time. Is he the best right-handed hitter in the game right now? Yeah, you could probably say that. But all time, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. He's got to do this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more years, what he's doing, to catch some of the great right-handed bats of all time.
Listen, he does have the history, of course, the American League record now 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When was that, in 2022? 2022, when he had 62 home runs, of course, the AL record, moving past Roger Maris. But where things stand for Aaron Judge, I would agree with DRS in the long pantheon of baseball. It has the nostalgia. It is called America's pastime for a reason. History is a very tough thing in MLB. Some notable right-handed hitters, as our producer extraordinaire Joe Frizo included. Hank Aaron, of course, Willie Mays, Joe DiMaggio, Albert Pujols, Roger Hornsby. I would still say right now Aaron Judge is in the mix, but maybe not the best right-handed hitter. It's difficult to also talk about at this moment. And then in terms of some of the markets that you see here, plus 145 to lead the bigs to win the Triple Crown this year. That's the best batting average in Major League Baseball, most home runs, most RBIs. Aaron Judge has 11 home runs. That's tied for second most, alongside Kyle Schwarber, behind Big Dumper over there in Seattle. Cal Raleigh, his real nickname. Don't get mad at me. Also second most RBIs, an RBI behind Teoscar Hernandez for L.A., who, of course, is probably going to be on the IL, exiting yesterday's game early for the Dodgers. Aaron Judge is going to be in consideration, but he's not even leading 2 of those 3 right now at this moment, trailing by 1 in both categories. I do understand. But that's part of how you become the historic level best right-handed hitter we have ever seen when you make history time and again. Also, the 400 average is really fascinating. Aaron Judge had 5 consecutive games, DRS, of multiple hits, including Saturday, hit his 11th home run against the Rays. In the last 2 games, including 0 for at the dish last night, just 1 for his last 8. Still not bad. But his batting average dropped by 18 points in a 2-game span. So to remain around 400 just shows you how difficult that task is.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. So you take a look at those numbers. 400 for the season, that's not happening. But it's also not a plus 100 price. It's 41 to 1. 400 plus at the All-Star break, that's not happening either. That's a plus 850 price. Triple Crown plus 145, certainly within his range, because he could still have a 325 to 330 season, and that would be tremendous and probably enough to lead maybe Major League Baseball, if not the American League, in average. But looking at 400, also understand this. we're humans here. We get frustrated. Sooner or later, pitcher's going to be like, I'm not pitching to the guy.
Yeah.
So if you do the Barry Bonds, you see one pitch a game, you get overzealous at the plate here, and that'll probably drop your average as well. He's going to be having a phenomenal season. I just don't think he's going to be at that 400 marker anytime.
For sure. Historic, winning his third MVP award in the last 4 years, no doubt. The greater picture, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on. More on the early lineup next. We continue MLB buy or sell bright and early on this Tuesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. Let's look at the picture of the National League pennant race as of this moment, about a month and a half in to this MLB season. DRS, there is no doubt everybody is trying to catch the LA Dodgers, both in terms of the standings and the odds board. LA best record in MLB, 24-11, with another victory yesterday against the Miami Marlins. The Dodgers have won 8 of their last 9 games for that best mark around the bigs. But when we compare the opening day odds to where things are right now, the Dodgers are always going to have that short price. So we've had the same conversation that we're going to have at this moment that we had way back in March, back in January, back in all these times around the reigning World Series champs. Who can catch LA? Plus 140 now, the current price on the Dodgers, but still incredibly short. The move against the Braves, 2 games below 500 after that 0-7 start. They're playing better baseball, looking more like the team we expected. The Phillies back by $1 as well. The Mets have seen the move most in their way, 7-1 now plus 490, and the Cubbies 22 wins already, 12-1 now plus 850. But buy or sell, DRS, the question to you. The Mets are the Dodgers' biggest threat in the National League.
Right now, you could probably say yes, but I'm going to sell that because I'm going to go season long at this point. I told you, I like the Mets lineup. 1 through 3, it's fantastic. Got some good hitting pieces there, 4 through 9. But if you're looking at the starting lineup, how do you win typically in the postseason? Give me that dominant front line starting pitching here to go toe-to-toe with some of the best bats in Major League Baseball. I don't know if the Mets pitchers will be up to the task all summer long. We're only in the month. We just started May. We got May, June, July, August, and September, then into October. And you're looking at pitchers there. It's like, okay, let's lean on, back in the day, Jacob deGrom. That would be absolutely a dominant frontline starter. Syndergaard, hey, man, these guys can make it to the World Series and do some damage. I'm not saying the Mets won't make the playoffs. They're a quality team at this point. And just looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, plus 490 price to win the National League, second place only behind the Dodgers. But then I look at other teams in the same division, like the Philadelphia Phillies. You want to have a 1-2 punch of, let's just say, any one given of Aaron Nola gets it together, has had some postseason performances. You take a look at Zach Wheeler, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, and then coupled by maybe a Christopher Sanchez or if Ranger Suarez does get it together. Same thing, you can take a look here at the Atlanta Braves, just going over their depth chart. Chris Sale, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball last year with the Cy Young. You take a look at, Spencer Schwellenbach, who has had a little bit of a rough run, but he has that pedigree being a young pitcher that can have dominant stuff. Grant Holmes has been decent. Spencer Strider just goes back to the IL if he's right by the end of the summer. I'm trying to line this up by saying it's not who's going to catch the Dodgers in the regular season. That's not the question here. Once you get to the postseason, how can you add up? And I just think you need dominant starting pitching to go toe-to-toe. So for me, I like the Mets, but I think the Phillies and also the Atlanta Braves, when they're right, if we're anticipating them to be right, I think they're going to be the challengers as opposed to the Mets.
And you saw it right there, DRS, in terms of the odds movement. It's what has made this start for Atlanta that much more concerning because even with the big acquisition for New York in Juan Soto, of course, the Phillies kind of have more of that playoff pedigree perhaps than their other contenders around the National League. But it was the Braves, despite some of the injury issues. We were awaiting the early returns of Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. Now Strider on the IL. Once again, still some questions for Atlanta, but they had that second best price only behind Los Angeles. So the 0-7 start, where we've never seen a team start that poor to begin a Major League Baseball season and qualify for the postseason, we're still expecting the Braves to be there. They would not be, though, as of this moment. And there are some other teams in the National League West, namely the Padres and the Giants, who are looking the part of a playoff and maybe even pennant contender around the National League. Because, DRS, in that first graphic that we asked, neither of the divisional foes for the Dodgers were included. Neither the Padres or the Giants. So if we were to loop those teams into this fold, do you think the Padres or the Giants provide the Dodgers a better push than any of the teams listed?
I mean, you could say they probably know them better because they're going to get a lot more playing time, and certainly that's the same division. But I look at the Padres here, not as strong a team as they've had in the past couple of years here. Same thing with the Arizona Diamondbacks, saying, hey, no, if Zach Allen can get back into form, maybe he could challenge. And then you take a look at the San Francisco Giants. I love Logan Webb. I love what they've done in the beginning parts of the season, but how healthy will they be? And also, still will they be on the same level level that they're hitting now that, let's just say, in the months of June, July, and August. So it is going to be a tough race out there, and it's a compact race, but I'm just looking for the best teams to take a snipe out of the Dodgers. Now, granted, at the end of the summer, Ben, we're talking August, September, October, you're playing your best baseball. Maybe the Diamondbacks are red hot at the plate of the San Francisco Giants that you say, you know what, we just caught a hot team at the right time. But you really can't do that and pick and choose and say, oh, the Phillies usually are fantastic at the end of the season. We don't know that. I'm just looking at the starting pitching of what I've seen in the past couple of years, anticipation of what I'm going to get this year, and the way you take out the Dodgers. Because when you're aiming for the Dodgers, usually it's like, okay, that 1 through 9 is tremendous. They're going to have the bullpen and certainly frontline pitching. If their frontline pitching starts to stagger a little bit, what's your main advantage now? Give me a better starting pitcher on a day-to-day basis than the Dodgers have, and the Phillies can do that, and so can the Braves. I'm not sure if the Mets can.
I would agree. I think from the pitching perspective, you probably looked at Philadelphia first and foremost. Aaron Nola maybe not at that upper tier he was maybe just a few seasons ago, but at least on paper, 1-2 punch of Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, probably a little bit more reliable. It's been what the Mets have done with their starting staff, though, that has been so tremendous. Not just Pete Alonso, not just Francisco Lindor, or even the slow start for Juan Soto, DRS.
Yeah.
Their pitching staff right now, maybe based on name and brand, not as strong as you would think, but Clay Holmes, Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, Kodai Senga, and David Peterson. Everybody in that starting staff. The worst ERA is Peterson right now with a 3.06 ERA. Clay Holmes, 2.95. McGill and Canning both at a 2.5. And Kodai Senga in his 6 starts, a 1.38 ERA. That's why I think the Mets have been so tremendous. But you wonder if that is going to drop off, and that is always what is going to win you more playoff games than most, having that best top 2, top 3 in your starting staff in those most critical games. The Dodgers have that edge at the moment, but the Mets have certainly kept pace. San Diego, to me, is the interesting one, because I think if you were to ask me right now, buy or sell, Mets being the best challenger for the Dodgers, I buy that. But I actually would say the Padres probably have the 3rd best chance.
Yeah.
But the Padres starting staff is also a little bit interesting. Our guy, Nick, pitching Pivetta. Pitching outstanding in his start in San Diego. Michael King has been very stout and solid as well. Dylan Cease trying to find his footing. But, of course, Joe Musgrove out for the entirety, more than likely, of the 2025 season, recovering from Tommy John. But when you get to the back end of the bullpen, if the Padres have a lead in a tightly contested playoff game at this moment, I don't think there's anybody right now, DRS, in Major League Baseball you are trusting more than Robert Suarez, who just showed us that last night for the Padres again. 14th save of the season already in San Diego's 23 wins in the victory over New York.
No, and also it says something where they're used to that type of playoff baseball already. You're going to get into the playoffs. We're not looking at 7-6 games. We're looking at 4-2 games, 3-2 games, tight innings, and high leverage situations for those pitchers late in the innings. And also, we're not so much more worried about the Padres offense. It'll come back. You know, you have some guys like Jackson Merrill that are still waiting to come back off the IL, who are lighting the world on fire. I do like that team overall, but also understand this. You're looking at a point where you want to take down the Dodgers, too. The easiest path to take down the Dodgers, have the best record you have. The Dodgers are going to win that division, which means, Ben, you're looking at wild card options for anybody out there in the NL West. Where in the East, somebody has to win it. Somebody might have an easier path, and you try to find that out. But usually, it's pitching is what wins in September, October, and early November, and we're just going with those price points right now, which, again, you're right. Michael King's been fantastic. If Dylan Cease can find it. If Nick Pivetta, who's been around Major League Baseball for a couple of years, can stay in it as well. And Randy Vasquez, one of my favorite fades in Major League Baseball with the high xFIP numbers there. We'll see if he can just be that 5th starter just to add some innings.
DRS, the team we really have not discussed at this moment, the Chicago Cubs, were the favorites to win the National League Central before this year got started. 22-14, the only team above 500 within that division. The Cubbies now nearly a $4 favorite to win the NL Central at minus 380. You just talked about it from that playoff positioning standpoint. If the Cubs win the division, they're going to host a couple of playoff games at least to start off October. Can the Cubs provide a test as a true pennant contender, or are you still a little bit wary?
I'm a little bit leery there because you had Justin Steele start the season. That's supposed to be your ace here, and then you line him up with Imanaga, like, hey, we'll try to play it out. But now it looks like, again, Imanaga goes to the IL. It's Tyone, who's a decent pitcher. Boyd's a decent pitcher. Ben Brown, okay. Colin Ray, Chris Flexen. It doesn't really bring that, oh, no, we got to face Tarek Skubal in game number 1 of a short series like Detroit would have. So that's sort of the layaway. But they can hit, man. The Cubbies can hit.
And they are hitting incredibly well right now. Kyle Tucker, the big offseason acquisition. And the youngster, Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA having himself a start to his MLB career here with the Cubbies. It's the injury news from Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga that make you a little bit cautious at this moment. More around MLB up next. We continue playing our favorite game. It is Buy or Sell, live right here on this Tuesday on the Early Line, a Major League Baseball edition. We've talked Aaron Judge in his chase for history this year, Triple Crown winner in the American League. What that would mean is one of the greatest right-handed bats in all of MLB history. We've talked the Dodgers' biggest challenger in the National League. Now the other side of this equation, some of the worst teams this year in Major League Baseball. And there is nobody, DRS, even remotely as bad as the Colorado Rockies. And that includes the Chicago White Sox, who historically were bad last season and are just 10-25 this time around. The Rockies are 6-28. 6-28.
Yeah.
That is the record for the Rocks at this moment. So the question again, not buy or sell, who's going to have the worst record at the end of 162 in the bigs this season. It's buy or sell. The Rockies are the most irrelevant franchise in sports, MLB, NBA, NFL.
I'm selling that right now. But by the way, let me just add on to the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
And like when the franchise came in, it was a really cool color concept there. They actually played at Mile High Stadium. It was interesting. It was like, wow, this could be fun. They actually had some competitive teams. The Matt Holliday years, put up some numbers.
Todd Helton.
Yeah, exactly. Now, now we're turning into teams that, say, okay, money, it's about making money in Major League Baseball, professional sports, we get that. But the Colorado Rockies now are in a division with teams that are willing to go way over their financial means. And I'm not saying Denver can do that, but if you're looking to sell a front-line starting pitcher where everybody has equal money, let's just say I'm going to give you $250 million as a guaranteed contract, that pitcher is never going to Colorado. Because as much as we like money and players like money, and that's what you're supposed to do, you also sit back on your rocking chair when you're 65 years old and you sit down with guys like John Smoltz and Greg Maddux and Chris Sales and the Randy Johnsons and go, hey, man, how was your career? Finished up with a 2.01 ERA. That's awesome. Hey, Dave, boy, you were a great pitcher early on. You went to Colorado and took that money. What's your ERA? Finished with a 5.20. No pitcher is going to do that, which means the relevancy of the Colorado Rockies is going to be dipping in the next couple of years. But the question wasn't asked, is it just the Colorado Rockies across Major League sports or national sports? For me, do you know who it is, man? Guess what league I'm going to? What league would I go to? The most irrelevant franchise in sports. The NBA, yes.
And what's the answer?
The answer is simple to me. It's Washington. It's the Wizards. The Wizards have never made an impact in the NBA. Not once, never. You take a look at a guy like Bradley Beal and say, hey, man, he's making more money than anybody. He's playing in Washington. Nobody cares. And if I met more than one Wizards fan in my life, who I think works at the SportsGrid network, that's all they are. That's all they are as a Washington fan. Who's a fan base of the Wizards? Have you ever run into multiple Wizards fans and be like, hey, man, Wizards are great? Like the Wizards back in the day were the Bullets and won a championship like in the late 1970s.
Yeah.
Completely irrelevant for 50 years in the NBA in a major market. It's by far the Washington Wizards for me.
So that's the interesting thing, right? The major market that is D.C. It's not like Denver is a tough place to be in terms of the overall market or drawing.
Beautiful city.
Beautiful city. Beautiful place to be. I would love to go to Coors Field one day. I hear it's a great place to catch a ball game, and it's probably a pretty cheap ticket at this moment. I'm probably going to sell the notion the Rockies are the most irrelevant team in 3 of our 4 major men's professional sports leagues in North America. I think when you think about the NBA as well, the Charlotte Hornets, probably not really moving the needle all that much in terms of what they have been and how successful they have been. But I hear the point about the Wizards in D.C. You're in D.C., you should be more. For me, I still think of the Wiz with John Wall and Bradley Beal and still have a little bit of relevancy in my mind. But I get to the point in terms of success, contending for championships, really has not been there. And the Wiz have been in a tank for what feels like the last 5 years. Is that going to change if they win the NBA draft lottery next week and get Cooper Flagg in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes? Then maybe, just maybe, DRS still holding out hope. That's the Philadelphia 76ers. Here was the Rockies' opening day starting lineup.
Yes.
Brenton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovo, Ryan McMahon, Chris Bryant, Michael Toglia, Kyle Farmer, Nick Martini, Jordan Beck, Jacob Stallings. I think if you were to ask even the most devout of MLB fans, DRS, how many players do you know just based on name recognition? There is not many baseball fans that could be like, oh, yeah, man, love that Jordan Beck guy. I think he's in for a great 2025.
No, you're right about it. And again, superstars sometimes attract the talent and also enough to win. The Rockies have been to the playoffs before, but I just look at the franchise itself and say, well, like, where's the game plan? We're just going to draft. And again, it's just coming from, even if you get drafted out of high school. Yeah. Hey, man, congratulations. You went number 3 overall as a pitcher. Where'd you go? The Rockies. Like, I just can't wait to get out of there at that point. Baseball is not meant to play at elevation. And again, the Colorado Rockies, from what I've heard, and again, I've never been to Coors, one of the more beautiful settings you can have.
Yeah.
You sit up there, you see the Rockies in the background. It's a great day, great weather. You enjoy the ballpark. There's a lot of runs, and there's a lot of fun. But for baseball to make sense for me in Colorado, and I joked about it before, like, is there a way that you could build a stadium where you could, like, depressurize the situation and bring it back down to sea level? I'm sure technology in the next 15 to 20 years would actually be able to do that. That would save baseball in Colorado, make it viable, where if you are a free agent looking to go there specifically as a pitcher, you want to do that. I remember Mike Hampton, I believe back in the, I want to say maybe late 1990s, was one of the best pitchers in baseball being a free agent. Went to Colorado, got a massive contract, and he exploded on impact in there because it's hard to pitch there. And I think most pitchers see that and say, I don't care how much money you pay me. I still want to be able to retire and be like, yeah, I had above average record, and my ERA wasn't a 6, where if I want to get to Cooperstown, they're not going to put an asterisk, oh, he played in Colorado, so take away 3 off his ERA. That doesn't happen here.
Frieza, we were talking about this the other day in the studio, DRS, and the ERA leader all time for the Rockies in franchise history is Ubaldo Jimenez, correct? If I'm not mistaken? It is. Do we remember what that ERA is? He's finding that for us. But that
Ubaldo,
is the ERA leader, Ubaldo Jimenez, 366.
Pretty good.
Number 2 is 405, Dion. So that just goes to show. And it's difficult in today's day and age to really make that pitch, to be like, hey, you're going to be our ace in Coors Field. Even if you develop a great starting pitcher, that second deal he's available to go to in MLB, he's probably trying to find somewhere else for the Rockies. I grew up in L.A., right? Dodgers play in the National League West against Colorado. I remember those really good Rockies teams of the early 2000s. Matt Holliday, Todd Helton, Troy Tulowitzki, Larry Walker, even earlier in the 2000s and late 90s. They were a fun team to play and a fun team to see. They really haven't lived up to that now. You might be thinking, what about the Chicago White Sox? Worst ever record in Major League Baseball last year, 41-121. They have to be the least relevant franchise in sports because of how bad they are. They play in Chicago, and when you are historically bad, you take on a weird form of infamous relevancy in our lives. So maybe the Rockies can't see that, because 6-28, oh boy.
At least people go to watch the Rockies. The White Sox?
Yeah, not as good. More on the early lineup next. A full Tuesday slate around Major League Baseball. Every team, all 30 clubs in action on the diamond on this Tuesday. But DRS, we've mentioned that a few times. We're selling the people short. 16 games on this Tuesday because we have a doubleheader in the nation's capital. Some bad weather on the East Coast this week. A rain out yesterday. We're hoping for better on this Tuesday. Not exactly the warmest temperatures, and some clouds and some rain expected in the forecast, but we're hoping we can play all 16 of these games on a Tuesday. That includes inside Yankee Stadium up in the Bronx today. Game number 2 of this midweek set between the Padres and the Yankees. The Yanks led 3-0 entering the 8th yesterday. Devin Williams in his debut year in pinstripes, man, it's been a struggle. The Padres scoring 4 in the top of the 8th to rally for the 4-3 win. Tonight, Clark Schmidt gets the start for the Yanks. Michael King back in the Bronx for the Padres. It was King who was involved in the Juan Soto deal. Now, a few years ago, he gets the start against his former team. In the Padres now, you see a pick'em price right there, DRS. An ever so slight favorite, -112 in terms of that money line number.
Shows a lot of respect here for San Diego, and rightfully so. Let me explain some things here. We're going to go on this game. 31 pitchers on the card today that are handicapped here with XFIP numbers. You take a look at Clark Schmidt on the mound. He's 26 out of 31, which isn't going to help you. 14 2/3 innings pitched, 5.52 ERA, but an XFIP of 4.79. Now, you might be saying he's pitching a little bit over his head and not getting the breaks there. That's one thing, but usually those things start to even out. Michael King, on the other hand, hasn't been sensational this year, but still top 10 today on the card with his XFIP numbers. 38 2/3 innings pitched. How about a 2.09 ERA, which you love, a slightly higher XFIP of 3.31. Now, you go over to the hitting environment and say, okay, what are we getting out of Yankee Stadium today? As Ben pointed out, 61 degrees, which is okay, but the wind isn't blowing out. More of a right foul pole to left foul pole. You take a look in the lineup today for the Padres. Fernando Tatis, love him, having a sensational season. Probably should be in your lineup. But how about this? Talked about Jackson Merrill, right? Anticipated in the lineup today. Jackson Merrill there, the left-handed bat here for the San Diego Padres, which could give them a little bit of a lift. But when we focus on the bats here for the New York Yankees, it always starts and finishes with the top 3 who are really good. Trent Grisham's having a sensational season as a lefty, Aaron Judge, and also Ben Rice. Those 3 guys, high ISO powers, high weighted on base percentages, but then again, it's going up against Michael King, a 156 batters he's faced this year. Take a look at his ISO against an 0.92. That's microscopic. A weighted on-base percentage of 249. Look at the K rates here combined. 30% overall, and it's equal opportunity. Like 32% to lefties, 26, 27% to right-handed batters. He should be able to hold down the fort here. Just pitch around that top three. The Padres should be able to get a victory again tonight. I agree with that line being very light.
San Diego looking pretty good on the road after a sensational, nearly historic start at home inside Petco. 23-11. The record now for San Diego, trailing the Dodgers by only a half game for the best mark, not just in the National League West or the NL, but in all of Major League Baseball. Game number 2 tonight in the Bronx. San Diego now an ever so slight favorite, minus 112 on that money line, but basically a pick'em. DRS, we talked about the best contender for the Dodgers in the National League. San Diego in the running, San Francisco in the running. Maybe the Chicago Cubs as well. 22-14, the record for the Cubbies so far this year. The only team north of 500 in the NL Central. Best record in that division, and nearly a $4 minus money favorite to win the divisional crown. Led by the best offense in baseball. 217 runs scored this year for the Cubs. The only team north of 200. The only team with more than 190 runs scored so far this year, including 9 last night, DRS, in the series opener against San Francisco. Ian Happ, a 3 RBI day to top that lineup for the Cubbies. More than $1.50 favorite here in game number 2 against the Giants.
It's a really fun lineup that they have. Take a look at Verlander for the Giants coming in. 37 innings pitched on the season, a 4.38 ERA. His expected ERA out of that 4.38 was actually a 3.72, so getting a little bit unlucky here. Not a terrible xFIP number, but not a great one at 4.31. You take a look at Colin Ray on the mound. He's 12th on the card today of about 30 pitchers. He's had 24 2/3 innings pitched on the season. How about an ERA of 1.46? But the expected ERA out of that 1.46 is a 3.52, and his xFIP is a 3.75. So maybe we do get hits today, but if you're taking a look at the lineup itself, Colin Ray this year, you take a look at his numbers. Not a high K rate guy, but sort of dancing around and making some plays because his ISO power number against combined between lefties and righties, an 0.85. That's microscopic. That means if you're not getting extra base hits, it takes 3 hits to get a run per inning, and that's usually not a great recipe for success. Love the Giants lineup. Yastrzemski, Adames, Chapman, Flores, decent today, but as always, we focus on the Chicago Cubs. It looks great on a day-to-day basis. Right-handed batters have gotten the best here of Verlander to the tune of a 222 ISO power number and a weighted on-base percentage of 321. What do we always love about Verlander in the past? Unbelievable strikeout numbers. That's not that type of pitcher anymore. Only a 20% K rate here, which isn't great. Look at the middle of that lineup for the Cubs today based on just going up against right-handed pitching this season. If we're just using ISO power numbers again, if you're not familiar, it's what damage you're doing at the plate. Doubles, triples, and home runs. You want that number to be a 165 or higher as an average. The reason I bring that up, take a look at the 2 through 6 today. 273, 300, 283, 487, and 295. And the guy we love talking about there, Pete Crow Armstrong, at 295 ISO power number through 103 bats against right-handed pitching. It's got to be the Cubbies for me today. I think you have the better pitcher and the better lineup on the mound today.
DRS PCA batting in the 6th spot yesterday for Craig Counsell. Nico Horner behind him, Dansby Swanson, and Nicky Lopez. The final 4 guys in the starting lineup for the Cubbies yesterday, all scoring at least a run. Pete Crow, Armstrong, Horner, and Dansby Swanson scoring multiple runs. Sign of a very strong offense there in Chicago. The New York Mets, a 5-4 win yesterday to open up their series in Phoenix against the D-backs. 2-run home run out of Polo Bear Pete Alonso, and Frankie continues it. That's Francisco Lindor, a 3-run shot as well. Really good matchup today. Zach Gallen gets the start for Arizona. The Diamondbacks, an ever so slight money line favorite at home. What do you like tonight in game
This game's
2?
going under here. And by the way, David Peterson, we take a look, use Gallen as that name, but Peterson on the season, 32 2/3 innings pitched here, 3.06 ERA. But how about the xFIP? Lower than that, 2.88, absolutely phenomenal. Here's where the game's going to come down to. Peterson, as a left-handed pitcher, has been very good against lefties and righties. You look at the lineup for the Diamondbacks on the season, not very good at all with power numbers against left-handed pitching. I just told you that ISO power number metric that we look at, 165 or higher is where you want to be. Look at the 9 batters anticipated tonight for the Diamondbacks. 062, 146, 143, 115, 073, 050, 125, 0, and 119. Mets going to get this, but also my favorite bet, probably under tonight.
And you got a little bit of wiggle room there with the 9 staying under that total
10 runs
tonight
beat you. Come on,
downtown Phoenix. What did you make of the city editions released yesterday for the D-backs?
Move to another city at this point. When I saw those, that reminds me of Glendale, Arizona. No, it doesn't. What connection is that at the Glendale, Arizona?
It had kind of the old colors, the turquoise and the purple.
Don't they have like 5 city editions?
Or MLB next. Another day for the history books in Major League Baseball. It is Skeens Day 31 in the history of MLB, a part of this very full slate Tuesday around the bigs. The Buccos on the road under the arch in St. Louis, and despite being on the road, DRS, in a 12-24 team, Pittsburgh with Skeens on the mound is an ever so slight money line favorite, minus 125. Total of 7 today against the Redbirds in the Lou. 14 games this year. Pittsburgh Pirates have been booked as the favorite. This is the 8th start of the season made by Paul Skeens. You would have to assume that nearly half of the times the Pirates have been favored this year, Skeens has been on the bump, and yet Pittsburgh just straight up 3-4 in the 7 outings that Paul Skeens has made this season. His overall record, 3-3. Will he get his 4th win of the season today against St. Louis?
What if I told you Paul Skeens is not the better pitcher on the mound today? What would you say about that?
I would say
What would you say about that? Liberator? Who's that guy? Well, let's explain it again. 31 pitchers on the card today with at least 5 innings pitched in 2025. And you know me. I'm a big XFIP guy. I like to be able to determine the underlying value of the pitcher and what that means, not just the name on the back of the uniform. Top 5, both of these, actually top 6, both of these guys reside in it. One guy, however, is 5th, one is 6th. Liberator is a spot ahead of Paul Skeens. Take a look at Liberator's season so far. 34 innings pitched, a 3.44 ERA, but look at that xFIP, 2.90. That is fantastic. Paul Skeens, 42 2/3 innings pitched. We're not saying he's being bad. He's actually got a 2.74 ERA, but a 3.01 xFIP number. And also, understand this. What happened the last time we saw Paul Skeens? Fastball wasn't there, couldn't strike anybody out. Does that mean that lower dip in velocity, something might be wrong with the shoulder? I'm not saying it, but you see the last start.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things I like to take a look at, because most people say, Skeens this light against St. Louis? And also, can we talk about the lineup for the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is like O'Neal Cruz hits a home run or nobody scores runs? Cardinals today, for me, we're going upset over Skeens.
12-24, the record for Pittsburgh. Skeens pretty good in his opening 6 starts of the year. Most recently, last Thursday, 3 earned given up against the Cubbies. All 3 of those earned runs against Skeens, courtesy of the long ball. But Matthew Liberator.
Call him Michael.
Today
I mean, come on,
for
sounds
St. Louis.
better, Michael.
Most shocking thing I've heard, Donnie Rator fan on the mound today.
It's a very conservative call by you right there.
For the St. Louis Cardinals. We head out to Atlanta. The Braves blanking the Reds yesterday for a 4-0 win. Atlanta avoiding the sweep on Sunday Night Baseball against the Dodgers, holding on for a 4-3 win. Expected to be rather easy today, DRS, in the A. Chris Sale on the mound for Atlanta, minus 220. That money line price in favor of the Braves today. Total stands at 8. Will it be that simple for the Braves against the Reds?
Yeah, take a look at Sale in the season. And again, this is interesting where you're using some of those analytical numbers that sort of confuse some people just starting to learn. Like, what are the ERA? Does it give up a lot of runs? It makes some sense. The expectations are some of the ERAs don't make too much sense. Look at Chris Sale in the season. 35 1/3 innings pitched. Look at his ERA, close to 5. Like, that's terrible. But his xFIP number is 3.25. The expected ERA out of that 4.84, Ben, is at a 3.32. Then you sort of slide it down and say, where's Abbott at this year? 19 innings pitched, a 2.84 ERA. That's tremendous. But his xFIP number much higher at a 4.48. When we take a look at the batting matchups today, Chris Sale struggling a little bit with right-handed batters, and good thing there'll be a lot of righties in the lineup today to sort of counterback that. But McLean's got good numbers, and Trevino. That's it. That's it for the Reds today. So it's like, okay, where are the runs coming from? For the Atlanta Braves, the matchup, not fantastic, but also understand this. You take a look at Andrew Abbott's a good strikeout pitcher. Maybe walks a little bit too much from the right-hand side, but the lineup, Austin Riley starting to come into his own, couple home runs in the past couple of games. Ozuna, Olsen in that lineup. A better lineup for the Braves, and maybe the better pitcher overall. Don't love the game, but it seems like it's going to be a Braves line at minus 215.
Yeah.
Maybe the runs stay under 8 in this game because, I just don't trust those Reds bats. That's probably where I'd go in this one.
As we've shared, the Cubbies the only team with a winning record currently in the NL Central. 2 teams at even 500. The Brewers 18-18. My Cincinnati Reds 18-18 as well. We need 18 to become 80. The Reds go over their preseason win total, and I cash a bet. Today in Fenway, pretty good pitching matchup, at least on paper. Lucas Giolito in his 2nd start in nearly 20 months against the Texas Rangers. Texas DRS sends out Nathan Eovaldi, who, of course, spent 3.5 years pitching inside Fenway as well. The Rangers with Eovaldi, a slight favorite today on the road in Beantown. What do you like?
And I'll take the slight favorite at that point, just on an Eovaldi move here. 42 2/3 innings pitched, and as you said, has a pedigree of being in in that ballpark. Not going to surprise them pitching there. How about a 2.11 ERA and a 2.40 xFIP number? The second best pitcher on the card today. I do think it's not going to be good for Boston, so I'm going to go Rangers in this one. Regardless of the lineups, give me the better pitcher.
Giolito, his first start in about 18 months last week against the Blue Jays in Toronto. 6 innings of work, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, allowed 2 home runs, giving up about 90 pitches for Giolito. Evaldi's been in the bigs for 14 years.
Yeah.
Guy's been around for quite some time. More on the early lineup next.